Hi, I'm Jackie Stapleton and welcome to Atoll TV. Today I'm here to help you with understanding the requirements of ISO 14001. If you like this video and want to see more great content, then click on the subscribe button and the bell icon. It costs nothing to subscribe and you can unsubscribe at any time. In this video, I'm going to cover the requirements of Clause 4.3, determining the scope of the environmental management system. I'm going to break it down and turn it into something you can understand. You'll then be able to apply this to your own organisation system and understand what the requirements will look like for you. No more guessing. Okay, let's get started. Clause 4.3 is called Determining the Scope of the Environmental Management System. There are several points in this clause, so I'm going to break them down and explain them individually. The first point in the leading sentence is, the organisation shall determine the boundaries and applicability of the environmental management system. The words that stand out to me here are boundaries and applicability. So I always do this when I talk about scope, boundaries and applicability. It's almost like putting a fence around the system so we know what activities, products, services and even locations are included in the management system. Now, there's some more information that we're asked to consider when determining these boundaries and applicabilities. Now, point A states that when determining this scope, the organisation shall consider the external and internal issues referred to in 4.1 and B, consider the compliance obligations referred to in 4.2. So, a quick reminder that Clause 4.1 is understanding the organisation and its context, and 4.2 is understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. Go and check those videos out in the ISO 14001 playlist if you need to understand those requirements further or just need a refresher. The reference back to these previous clauses is great. I love it. It shows how everything that we do within this standard is all related and nothing that we do is just a standalone step created just to keep auditors happy and cause frustrations to businesses implementing the system. What you discover about your business in the steps followed for Clause 4.1 and 4.2 will influence the boundaries you determine for your management system. For example, if it was identified that contractors have an influence on the environmental management system, as a large part of work is completed by contractors, and the work performed is vital to meet contract requirements, then it would be necessary to ensure that those activities are included in the scope, which essentially goes back to the boundaries and applicability. It would have an adverse effect on the system if these activities were not included within the scope, as the management system would not be implemented or reviewed to include this vital scope of work. And then finally, point C states that when determining this scope, the organisation shall consider its organisational units, functions and physical boundaries. This is quite unique as the other ISO standards do not go as low down in defining the scope as ISO 14001 does. This means that you should consider whether your environmental management system is applicable to certain locations, units or departments of the business only, or is it across all of these areas? Then point D goes on to state that you are required to consider the business activities, products and services. This requirement is just about asking yourself, what is it that you do? What activities do you conduct? What products do you manufacture, build or deliver? And what services do you provide? And when considering this, can they impact the business's environmental management system and obligations? Then point E states that the organisation is to consider its authority and ability to exercise control and influence. Within any business, you will have either control or influence over the activities that you conduct. Normally, you can control activities that you are directly responsible for, like the types of vehicles or plant and equipment that you purchase. Then normally the influence comes in with your suppliers. You can influence your suppliers to manage or control their waste by implementing a requirement when they are entering your premises. Or you could also influence them by requiring them to have an environmental management system in place. Sometimes the lines between control and influence can become a bit blurred and may even differ between one business to another, depending on what your activities, products and services are and what your level of influence can be. It is then important to note that this clause also states that once the scope is defined, all activities, products and services of the organisation within that scope need to be included in the environmental management system, and that the scope shall be maintained as documented information and be available to interested parties. That's great for us as auditors, as we're expecting to see a scope written down somewhere, so it's clear what we are using to select our sampling from. As implementers of a system, this is important for you because now you know where your system is to be built and what activities, products, services, locations, departments, and even functions it is to cover. And be sure that you have this documented. Now that we're speaking of documented scopes, you still might be wondering what on earth this looks like. Well, lucky for you, I've found a few examples to share. The first one is research and development, project management, sales, delivery, support, service and maintenance of communication services delivered from all state offices in Australia. The second example, electrical and mechanical consulting engineers providing engineering design and documentation for mechanical and electrical installations associated with all types of building of residential, commercial or industrial nature in Australia and overseas. And finally, the third example is the importation, distribution, supply, service and repair of industrial products and other products as deemed necessary to satisfy our customers' needs and requirements. I am positive that this has been helpful to you, and thanks for joining me. And do not forget that Auditor Training Online is a recognised training provider, and we know how it works in the real world. So we're confident that we can help you to make a change in your life and join the most sought after profession out there. Go to our website and enroll to transform your work and industry experience into a recognised qualification. And don't forget to subscribe to Atoll TV and leave a comment or question, as I truly do want to help you to join the best career out there with me.